we want to welcome you guys back to another Covenant podcast. Today, I have two of what I would consider my good friends, really. The superintendent, even though sometimes when I refer to him, I call him Dr. Allen, but most times he wants me to just call him Aaron because we're friends way before any of the professional stuff we do. And then his sweet wife, Tami, who I've grown to love with all my heart. And I told him before we started that I was going to read a couple of statistics just so you guys are aware, that specifically Dr. Allen, I'll call you Dr. Allen when I'm reading about these things. In Lincoln County schools, just the latest numbers, we have almost 10,700 students. Do you know that you're kind of the boss of 1,200 full-time employees? One of them is your beautiful wife. There are 23 schools in Lincoln County. Do you know that our graduation rate is reaching 91% for the first time in a really long time? Yep. Do you know that the state average for that is about 86? We in our school system rank 4th in the Charlotte metro area and 18th in the state in proficiency, which is up from years past. And do you know that our ACT scores in Lincoln County schools are 23% higher than the state average? For you guys that don't pay attention to all these numbers, one thing about when I was teaching school, I learned that everything has to have we don't call anything by its name. It has to be a letter of some sort. Took me about 2 years. I taught school for 3, and it took me 2 years to memorize what all those things meant. And I don't think I got them all. But anyway, so the reason I brought all that up is because I think all of that stuff is amazing. And it's attributed to both of you, because I know being in ministry that you don't do anything without the support of somebody at home believing in you and supporting you 1,000%. And all of that is some really great accomplishments. And I'm really proud of you as a superintendent in the county. But way beyond that, somebody that is a friend of mine, I'm really proud that y'all have accomplished that together. And absolutely none of that is probably why you're here to talk with me today. The reason I brought them in today is honestly is because of my admiration for them personally as somebody that lives in this community. This family of faith. I was thinking about your family. You're number one, incredible human beings. And you have 3 beautiful children that I love with my whole heart. That are literally beautiful children. And then just your heart to serve. I have one story about Aaron, not Dr. Allen, but it was Aaron doing this one. I don't know if you remember this, about 3 years ago, we did a big FCA event down at East Lincoln, and all of the high schools were there. West Lincoln, North Lincoln, Lincoln, East Lincoln were all playing other teams. And I was helping with Lincolnton at the time, and we were playing the second game, and I think North Lincoln had played first. And when I came to the sideline before our game, I saw Dr. Allen. You were being the water boy. Yeah. You were doing water for North Lincoln's football team. And then I watched our whole game, and you took water to all of our kids the whole game. And then after us, West Lincoln played, and you were their water boy. And then finally East Lincoln played, and you were their water boy. And I just thought, man, I think that spoke more to me about you than all of the hard decisions that you get to make every single day. I just think getting to watch that, and you weren't doing it to be seen, because quite frankly, most people in the stands might not even seen that you were doing it, but I did. I saw you doing it. And I thought that's why you're successful in all those other numbers, because of your love, your heart, your willingness to serve. And then finally, the main reason here is I think you are not just an incredible family, but you are an incredible family because you're a man of God, you're a woman of God. And that's what I want to talk about. I think sometimes when you're in a position of education, especially when you're a teacher or the superintendent of a school system that has 11,000 kids, that people think they know you because of decisions that you make. But I want them to really know you. I want them to know the man and the woman that I respect and love. And so throwing y'all some easy questions out there. So we're going to let Tami go first.
That's fine.
And I just want y'all to tell me a little bit about your upbringing, where you're from, how about your life, parents, church, whatever it is that was in there. Sports. I know you'll throw some of that stuff out there, but.
So I'm originally from Maryland. I grew up in Cumberland, Maryland.
Yeah.
So
you're a Yankee?
I'm a Yankee. It kind of depends on who you ask.
The Mason-Dixon line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I am the youngest of 4 daughters, and I do have a twin sister. And so we had amazing parents, had us at very young. I think if I have this correct, they had 4 children by the time they were 21.
God bless them.
So they're not right since. I mean,
sure.
And the position that I am in my life as a parent, I just don't know how they did it. It's just unreal. So, and then you think about it, they did it because they had great support at home.
Yeah.
And that was my grandparents, my dad's parents, and my mom's parents, but mostly my grandmother has a lot to do with my faith. She'd pick us up from church. Yeah. And even when you had to turn back the clocks or turn them forward one year, she was late picking us up. And we were just thinking, she is never late. Well, she forgot to either rewind her clocks or spring forward. Yeah. So we just had a good laugh about it. But she still showed up. She was an hour late. Yeah. But anyway, she just always made sure that we were going to church. She'd pick us up. And it wasn't a close drive by. She had to come across town to get us. Yeah. And that was just stuck in my mind. She made that a priority. So my parents didn't make us go. It became like our decision. And so I'm grateful for her and her doing that, because I think it just that was my seed. It was planted a long time ago. And so then we moved to North Carolina. I think it was in 1994.
Then you your family moved here?
Yes, sir. Okay. My whole my dad got a job down here with his brother-in-law. And so we lived down here. My sister and I went to Kings Mountain High School. Yeah. And then we
Mountaineers.
That's right. So, and then of course we're sports fans over and over, and that just did great things for us. We just had great friends, and we went to a church there with my parents. They would go sometimes, they wouldn't, but it's just something that always was. I felt right doing. Right. Felt like it was just something that was a part of me, and when it wasn't being done, there was something off. Yeah. You know, so that was pretty much our upbringing. Then graduated in '96 from Kings Mountain High School and went to Western Carolina.
Yeah. How'd y'all meet?
Go Catamounts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Go Catamounts.
Tell the story.
Yeah. How'd y'all meet each other then? We'll interrupt his part of the story. How did y'all meet each other?
So I'm older. So we didn't meet when she moved down here. We didn't meet till we were both teaching at Kings Mountain High School, and I'll let her tell the story.
Why he's
Tell me you were her teacher. No.
No, we're not that old.
I really want to reveal everything about their family.
Right? Yeah. So I always say that Aaron, it was so funny because the office staff always like to take care of you. This is what you need to be doing. Why are you not dating anybody? Blah, blah. And they would say, you need to go talk to that Aaron Allen. I'm like, nope, not my type of guy. I'm not going to do that.
Because we both said growing up, we would never move back to Kings Mountain. We'd never marry anybody from Kings Mountain, and we'd never live in Kings Mountain again. Yeah. And we ate all 3 of those statements.
Oh, yeah. I remember that vividly. I thought, I am never moving back to Kings Mountain. I'm never going to marry anybody from Kings Mountain. You know what the third thing I said I was going to never do? I was never going to be a teacher. Yeah. Because that's what people are saying.
Well, I was never going to be a preacher. So,
and I stopped saying that literally. I was like, okay, I'll never say never again.
Yeah, that's right.
So, but then we met and we would talk, and he really was a great mentor. He was a great teacher. He had great relationships with people and students. And so I really admired that about Aaron. And then he asked me out finally. He'd come and flirt with me during my planning time. And his planning time was out to the pool. Yeah. And then you had to walk outside and walk back in the building.
I was.
Swim or something?
Swimming, track. Yeah.
And so he would come and flirt, and then I'd happen to walk out there. Of course, I'm like, is he out there? Okay, I'll go out there. Yeah. And so if he was out there, I'd go out there.
So you were flirting back a little.
I was flirting back a little bit. Right. So slowly and surely, he finally asked me out. Yeah. And so we dated for an hour and a half.
Hour and a half? Yeah. Skinny second.
Yeah. Skinny second. So about a year and a half, and then he broke up with me, Mike.
What?
This is the debate of all debates.
We'll go to our grave deciding.
Yes, we will.
Anyway.
I'm taking your side on it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
So anyway, he went to a mission trip on Honduras and came back and asked me to go out to dinner. And for a while, I was a little hesitant. You know, I thought I'm going to play hardball.
Your dad was going, don't do it.
Right. Yeah. Yes. And so eventually I said yes. And then after that, he eventually proposed. And
woke up.
Yeah, he sure did.
What were you thinking anyway? No.
It's a lot of debate in that question.
I'm going with her on this one for real. All right. Well, we'll segue a little bit, give you a little break on that too. Figuring out. Tell me about your life story. So, did you grow up in Kings Mountain?
Yeah. So I grew up, mom and dad. I'm the youngest of 3, 2 older sisters. My dad, mom, both taught educators for their whole careers, 40 plus years, both of them. But product of Kings Mountain, grew up swimming, probably most of my life, kind of fell out of love of swimming, tried to do other things, but realized that's where I was most successful embraced it, came back and loved it. Was part of the first team, and we opened the pool and all that at Kings Mountain. That was exciting during that time.
I actually saw an old picture of you like about 2 months ago on Facebook where you were like
coaching. Yeah, I love coaching.
12,
Gosh, I loved it.
I know.
I was a lot skinnier and a lot more active then, but I loved what I was able to do with coaching, and I still. In fact, we were here 2 weeks ago, and I saw one of my former swimmers here in the audience. He was coming to lend support to a baby dedication.
Yeah.
And so he knew some of those people, and I looked at him. I was like, there is nobody that tall ever that I see. And so I went over and spoke to him. But it's just testament. Those group of kids during those 5-6 years meant a lot to me. Yeah. But I was also an athletic trainer when I was working there too. And that's really the reason I came back. Never, like Tami, never thought I'd do education. In fact, I had a completely different plan. I was going to do business, going to open up this, you think of Bose and you think of the Big E down in Gaffney and Bose up. My friend and I in high school, that's what we were going to do in the 90s. That's our plan. I have to go to college and do something like that. Until I took my first economics class and realized that's not for me.
College?
Chapel Hill.
Oh.
And when I realized, that's all right. Went to Carolina, though, got my degree in exercise science. My plan and after that point was to be an athletic trainer, really to go to grad school to teach, big words here, kinesiology, biomechanics.
That's some hard stuff, though. I do remember that.
It is.
In college.
So I went to get a master's, and after graduated Temple, or from Carolina, I went to Temple to get my master's in sports medicine, and had all the plans in the world to go study at University of Hawaii to get my PhD and work in Hawaii as a trainer until my grandmother was given a couple months to live.
Yeah.
Made the decision to come home in February. She was diagnosed in February with congestive heart failure. Came home, and at that time, the only job in Kings Mountain for me was to teach at the high school and to teach health. Ron Massey, the great coach, AD, then
everybody knows Ron Massey.
Yeah, so he hired me to do that, and I was a trainer. And so I tell everybody I got into teaching because I had to teach, because I was hired to be the trainer who had to teach.
Yeah.
And then I decided at that point, teaching, coaching, training. Single, obviously, because I'm there 18 hours a day, 6 days a week. Some days, summer's not off at all.
Summer's off.
So I had the bright idea that I'm like, well, I'm going to be a principal because they work way less than I do. Yeah. And so I went to Gardner Webb and got my degree in administration. And that's kind of about the time Tami and I were initially dating. And then I left Kings Mountain. And came back. That's right. And so when I left during that breakup season, I went to North Lincoln, and that was how I came to Lincoln County. Opened up North High as an AP, and in fact, then the second year we were at North High, we were on some dating newlywed game at the stage. So anyway, I say all that, my plan was never to do education. My plan was to go and to really not even come back to North Carolina, much less Kings Mountain, much less Vail and Lincoln. But, the good Lord had other plans. Grew up in the church, grew up Baptist, parents, one of those Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, never failed. You were made to do it, and then you grow into that's what I look forward to doing.
Yeah,
I'd probably say one of my best friends, even in adulthood, was still my youth minister way back then. It was in our wedding, Shane. And so just the idea is that growing up in church was just normal for me. I can say probably on a timeline that I was baptized initially at 8, 9. I remember it, but I don't remember it, if that makes sense. But I remember going to Look Up Lodge, of all places, where our kids grew to love going as a kid themselves. When Shane was the youth minister, probably 15, I think I was at the time, rededicating myself at that point and really understanding what the Spirit did to me. And so from fast forward, getting married, having kids, growing up in Kings Mountain again, to being here, God's hand's been in every decision. Closes a door here, opens wide open doors over here. You can't deny that His hand's been in our path.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I agree. I mean, and I don't know when I met you guys. Maybe it was when you came to church here that I really got to know you, but just knowing you from a distance, and what I really enjoy watching the most is your kids. Not only are they like really good athletes, and by the way, I don't know if his family's full on as much as yours. Obviously, he married into it, but there's some crazy athletes in your family.
Yeah,
You know,
we
some
got some good ones, don't we?
I keep up with them even before I knew that they were kin to you. I remember
Really?
going to a game at Kings Mountain and saw this blonde-headed girl that goes to my church and spoke to her, and come to find out it was her twin sister, and I thought it was her. And I was like, "Oh, you're
So
not
they must
her."
have been playing Shelby.
Yeah. That's right. They were playing, and so
That
That's
happens
not
a
the
lot.
first time that's happened.
That's
So it's
true.
okay.
yeah, they were. It was a Shelby game, and I'm like, "Well, y'all do really look alike." You know, so anyway, but yeah, talk about that. You know, like both of you are obviously in education, but how do you manage education meetings and raising a family? How's mom? Talk to us a little bit about that. So
Well, I think you always go into parenthood. I always knew it was just going to be a teamwork, a partnership.
Yeah.
And just kind of like that's what we were doing before we were married. So he was a principal, and I was like, oh, you got to be gone again? You have to work that game? Are you sure you have to go to that game?
Yeah.
Can't somebody else do that game? Like, what time do you think we home?
yeah,
Meanwhile, you have a
have
kid in
to
your
lock
lap.
the building.
Yes.
If
And
you're
so,
assistant principal.
and he, his parents were fantastic. My family would help out, but his mom and dad really just, she would know it. She would say, well, you just let me have him, or, just
Yeah.
kind of like back and forth and being supportive. And, we'd go see Aaron. I remember taking, when Aaron was at Burns High School, Harper was born. I think she was there by then. Anyway, the boys were old enough to just kind of run around,
Yeah.
and eyes view, I could watch them. But then Harper's in the stroller. So sometimes I'm like, all right, she and I are out, and the boys maybe could stay with him sometimes. So,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
kind of working.
Well, little boys love it. They're at the
Yes.
gym, ball field.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
They just like my little grandson. We just dump him out at the high school and come back 3 hours later.
Right. You got him,
They got a
right?
fence.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Contain.
Yep.
But now I think I learned early in that opportunity. We'll say that, especially when I did go to Burns, because going to a high school with a wife and small kids, and at that point, it was a kindergartner and pre-K and a newborn,
Yeah.
and I was principal of high school.
Yeah.
And they were at that time 3A, so I mean, pretty big,
Yeah.
and then the idea of how to manage all that. And first thing she said was like, "I'm not going to be doing a single parent thing." So at that point, I was blessed to have people that were at various stages of their life. I had somebody who was not married and single.
Yeah.
I had somebody who had kids older than us and kids that were way older than us.
Right.
So at that point, it was kind of the unwritten rule that there was at least three nights during the 5 of the week that I would be home for dinner and bed to help out. But then typically we agreed that there will be 2 nights that I'd be gone, and maybe another day on the weekend.
Yeah.
But all in all, that was our goal. And that was not just my goal. It was a goal for all of them who had a family, who had a life, to try to have balance.
Right.
And that's kind of always stuck. There's always been that, this week I got a board meeting and something else, but the other weeks I'm busting butt to get home, to be at a game, to be wherever, to be there for dinner, to help make dinner, those kind of things. Because it is a team effort.
You have to be intentional. That's my
right.
word this year. Y'all know that already, but setting those priorities where no matter how busy or how professional you become, to make sure you're pouring into your family. And I think that's part of the reason I wanted to sit down with you guys today. I think sometimes when people they think they know all about you because you're the superintendent of the schools, and you make decisions from your heart for whether it's closing the school down today or moving this direction or whatever, and people think they know who you are, and they don't know who you are. There's
a lot of judgments on social media, both ways.
Yeah, I'm sure you get some interesting emails every once in a
with
while.
limited information. That's right.
But I want them to see, your hearts and how much you love. I mean, how much, and I know, common sense. I only taught school for 3 years, but a school, while it's it's ministry.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the church, and you don't go in and open your Bible in 8th grade English. I didn't, and because I wanted to stay working. But anyway, you don't. But you implement principles that are faith principles all day long, and I think sometimes people forget to get to know people and forget to pay attention. But y'all have a family and y'all have a life and you have a faith walk, and And while I see so many principles of your lives involved in what you do, I want people to get to see the people I get to see, the people that I know, the people that I love and respect on a podcast or whatever. And plus, I also think it's a good thing when it comes to other people that are involved in professional stuff that can suck the life and time out of your life. Why it's important? Because your kids are so well balanced and so supported. I've had the privilege of watching two of them, playing sports, and you guys there to support them, and they're very, you know, when I see them, a basketball game the other night, their oldest was getting ready to play, and I was kind of walk over while he's warming up and hug him, and they're always so respectful, and so they're good teammates too, and I think all of that is a reflection of y'all, and so I don't know what next question that would lead to, but
but let me talk about that. So I mean, so we, just like any other parent, we get animated, frustrated, tired, excited.
Oh, yeah.
We run the gamut of emotion. And by and large, most of the times I can be a dad at those events. We can be parents without having to play professional role 24/7. And that's the beauty of our board and our administrators, that they give me that opportunity to be a parent and be a fan. There's sometimes that we question, are we going to get thrown out? I was just being honest. And we're like, okay, let's each calm down a little bit, take a breath, or relax, because this would not be good if we were asked to leave. But,
if you get thrown out of a game,
well, it's one of those
walks
things.
away from me lots of times, and I get too upset, especially
is she
the beginning.
one? So she's the one from y'all.
Sometimes we balance out each other, but so it's maybe skewed a little bit toward her, a little bit more. But the idea is that I tried to. She is from Maryland, but the notion that it's a little challenging for our kids. We recognize that. I'm sure there's commentary about, hey, you only get X, Y, Z because you're the superintendent's kid, and that's hard. But I didn't grow up with that comment, but with my dad in an assistant superintendent role when I was growing up as a kid. He was my sister's principal when she was growing up through the ranks, and so we've always kind of dealt with that. I've dealt with that. I figured out how to do that tactfully. And helping them navigate that. But the community that our kids grow up in at West, they're respectful of that. And I don't know that that's really an issue. I think some other people outside may think some of that sometimes.
They probably, knowing small community, I mean, that there's good and bad. Like when you like Lincoln County, like is a beautiful community. I mean, it's got great people from one end to the other. But there's also the other, there's probably, I would guess, the people that he likes West Lincoln better because his kids go there, or you teach up that direction or whatever, which is all the more reason I brought up and I know it was just one night, and it was you being the guy that was bringing water to all four teams that night, but I want to say, I've been involved in and it's a blessing. I often get asked to be involved with if they're having meetings and they need a faith representative. Not because we're friends or whatever, but even before you were there, I would be asked. You would be, to like, will you come and be a part of this? And so I've had a very, I think almost a special position of watching it play out, with you and superintendents. And
you've had a front row seat. That's right. For many years.
And I've always actually appreciated that your love for all of them. I'm another person that goes to church. Here's Heather Ryan. I just, and her kids go to Lincoln, but I don't think she loves Lincoln kids more than she loves West Lincoln kids. I don't think you love West Lincoln kids more than you love North Lincoln kids. I just have appreciated that from my position, the perspective I have. Heck, if my kid's playing for a team, I'm pulling for that team to win. I don't care who they playing against.
That's right. Sure, and informally, we've had that kind of agreement that our board allows me that opportunity to be a dad. When the kids were in middle school and elementary, I was able to get more in my old roles as a county AD or assistant superintendent or whatever in HR. I focused on the opportunity to be at West and East and Lincoln more then, because I knew that once those boys got to high school and once Harper gets there, my time's going to be given to West, because I want to be a dad and enjoy that opportunity.
Yeah, you should.
But the one thing though that, sticks out to me a little bit, and especially with all three of them coming up, in sports or academics or arts or whatever, I want for them just like I want for the other 11,000 kids.
Yeah.
I want opportunities for every one of them to be there. I want kids to feel supported and loved, and staff to be supported and loved. And whether it's, I'm not doing things just for union so Tammy can, experience something. I want it to be available for everybody. Right. I want it to be for all of our kids, because that's what they deserve. And I think, from people that don't understand the day-to-day, sometimes it does look like X, Y, or Z is getting a little bit of something extra on one end, but that's, there's rhyme and reason, and we try to be equitable. We don't be equal. And because fair isn't always equal. Yeah. We try to be fair to our people, our schools, our communities, that at a certain time, a certain need arises, we take care of that. And it's not everybody gets the same, because it's not everybody gets a trophy mentality. We try to fight against that. Yeah. But it's opportunities that, because as being here your whole life, and the time that I've been here for almost 20 years, it is four very distinct communities. Yeah. And each of them don't need nor want all the same things. Sure. And so we try to look at it that way, that at some points, that's kind of how we, our organization ebbs and flows in that need. Yeah. And people who come new to the community don't necessarily understand that. Yeah. That history and that working.
Social media has really helped y'all out a lot on that stuff. People can say what they want to say.
I was going to say too that, going back to our kids and your compliment, and I appreciate that so much, because, sometimes you don't know if you're riding your kids too hard, or, and we probably don't know all the stories if they hear things in a negative way of like, oh, and their friends.
Kind of like being a preacher's kid.
Yeah, sure.
That's right.
Yeah. And I just think that we just have rooted in them that you are your own person. Yeah. And, that you're going to, I always say, you're always going to hear things and read things and see things. It's not okay. Yeah. You're going to hear it. And so, it's not something you need to be doing. But I remember when the kids were getting older and getting ready to be in high school and stuff. And we had a conversation of like, your first role was to be a dad. Yeah. And Aaron and the boys would always go Friday night football. Yeah. And so that changed a lot too. And that was a big adjustment, because I remember his face was like, oh yeah, and so, and he did, and that's just who he is. Yeah. And he, and I would just have to say that he wants every student and every child in Lincoln County Schools to have absolutely what they can have. Yeah. And I always say, well, I'm not apologizing for something. Yeah. And I'm the one that's a little more sassy on that end, because I feel like at some point, because I don't want him
to defend your man.
Right. Yeah. That. And also, like, I want, I just know that my kiddos are fantastic. They're human. They're going to mess up. Yeah. But they just know that the expectations when they walk out that door, I think, and I hope, because we hold the same expectations with one another. That's so
right. They need to honor themselves, honor their family, honor God in all their decisions that they do. And when we're not around, they need to think about all three of those resulting impacts.
Well, if your kids would get, it's kind of like when I was the preacher's kid, if I got in trouble, something to do with youth group, it was a little different from every other kid getting in trouble, because my daddy was the preacher. Oh, yeah. And I'm sure as hard as you try, that would be an interesting balance to try to let your kid be normal and be a teacher and a superintendent.
Listen, I mean, I remember, when the principal calls, and I'll take a phone call, and I remember distinctly, whether it's in Lincoln or in Cleveland County, when the principal would call and says, hey, and I'm picking up the phone just like, hey, chit chat, whatever, small talk business. And they're like, hey, Mr. Allen, I'm calling as the principal of whatever. And they're like, oh, this is that conversation. They're more nervous than I am. I kind of like, okay, whatever, we'll deal with it. Yeah. They're more anxious, the principal or the AP's calling, because our kids do mess up, and they should be held to the same standards as everybody else. And that's some of the stuff that I have to, they are, sure.
I want them to be held. Walk a straight path and
you mean y'all
know what it's like to fail?
Y'all weren't perfect?
No, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's right.
Real close to it.
Well, I think those things, like I was thinking when you were describing that story about you at Union or your kids at West Lincoln, I think it actually worked to the advantage of the students and the teachers in the county, because if you're invested in what your kids, their opportunities and the teacher opportunities. Yeah. Thus, you're going to want that for everybody. Yeah. I think it actually works more to the advantage of the county school system than the disadvantage. And I think it's your heart.
You think about it. I mean, it's been since Dr. Edie was superintendent that there has been a superintendent that has had a spouse and or a child involved in the relationship.
Yeah.
And so it's been, 25 years?
Yeah.
So, it's just something different from the community to have to experience with that double tie-in.
That's true.
To the operation.
So does he do a good job as a superintendent from a teacher's perspective?
Absolutely. I do brag on him. I think he's great. And now sometimes I want to come home and be a little fireball about certain things and like, why is this and why is that? Or I just need to understand something. And he doesn't hold back. I mean, he's like, this is what's going on and that's what's going on. And, it's just what you see is what you get all the time.
Yeah.
Does not put on a show.
And I know this because, and I can say this now because Miss Hoyle would do this once in a while. And
Sherry.
And Dr. Allen, Sherry, Dr. Allen does this with me, not with anything confidential with anything in the school system, that he's not supposed to talk to me about. Nor would I talk to him about anything confidential in church life, whatever. But what he will do once in a while is call me and say, hey, Mike, pray for me today. I got some stuff going on, personnel or whatever, or some days some days it's because somebody has misinterpreted what you think or say, and you're like, or even who you are as a man or as a Christian at times. I mean, you've had all of them. We've had all these conversations. It sometimes make a decision that somebody don't necessarily agree with, or they think you made a decision. Sometimes it's that, and I'm getting tore up today with emails, and my heart's hurting a little bit. Won't you pray for me? Or I got a big meeting this afternoon. Why don't you pray for me?
Yeah.
And it's a hard job. I would not. I don't envy the position.
No,
have it. Because I know that things that are sometimes could be said that are hurtful.
Yeah.
And he does a really good job of being able to say, I'm going to hold that to what?
Yeah.
And just knows that but it can be hard, and people are not always nice, and people like to throw their opinions out there. But he's a strong guy, and I think that
he really is.
He has
But I also have strong people.
But you're a man of God too. I mean, I think that's the point of this whole
Yeah.
conversation is like y'all heard me say this at church before. If that shirt don't fit you, don't wear it. Like if somebody says something about me that's not true, I don't have to wear that.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to do that. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But I see you do that a lot. And I'm sure you have to do that too. Not only are you teaching in the system, but it's your husband.
Mm-hmm.
And you got 3 kids that could get hurt by what people say about their daddy.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And that's a lot of interesting roles. That's kind of why y'all's family interests me. Not that I didn't love y'all anyway, because y'all know I do, but it's like, there's so many like when I have conversations about either of you, whatever, in the community, I tell people, why don't you get to know them, the person,
Sure,
instead of the title,
Yeah.
right.
Like that's why we have moments where I address Dr. Allen as Dr. Allen, but we also have moments where it's Mike and Aaron talking,
Yeah.
And so I admire the both of you, and I do see the fruit of your labor, and I don't want to put their kids with y'all or anybody else on a pedestal. Like I think they're perfect, or they're nice to me, and I do think they're amazing children. But I see the fruit of who y'all really are in your children. I really do.
Thank you.
And
Well, I mean, they're good kids. They got a good head on their shoulders,
talk about them.
but they're
Some
ornery.
nice things about me.
Listen, they can be ornery just like anybody else's kids, and we have
Your
issues.
kids
at
get
home.
grounded sometimes. don't they?
Yes.
Yeah, they have to get punished.
Oh my gosh. So I mean, we're just normal. We're normal,
Yeah.
and just happens to have a different title in front of my job right now.
Yeah.
But
I know. I was thinking about that. I always think I've got a year left with my oldest.
Yeah.
2 years left with my middle child, and then the youngest one, and it just goes by. The days are so long,
Yeah.
but those years.
Meaning they're
are
getting
cut.
ready to go to college. Okay.
That's right, and they're cut so short. I'm like, oh my goodness.
It doesn't take long for it to get here
No.
either, did it?
But I'm so proud of them because they are strong, and they know whose they are and who
Yeah.
they are, who they
Yeah.
belong to.
Yeah.
I'll say that when they got the door.
Yeah.
Remember whose you are and who you are.
Yeah.
And that means you better.
And they
be
carry
acting
themselves
right.
like that. When I watch them from a distance, and I know I said a while ago jokingly, they're going to watch this and think, well, I'm glad they talked about us for 15 minutes. Not,
That's the
but
most you've ever said. No, I'm
yeah,
just teasing.
but it is, y'all needed to know,
Thank
from
you.
a perspective of somebody else, that all of that stuff that's you're responsible for, the part that matters the most, you're getting right, and I'm not saying it doesn't matter to be a superintendent, but we all know, y'all have heard me say, It was at my funeral, and if I preach in front of thousands and thousands of people, if my children don't believe I was a great man, then what difference did any of it make?
Yeah.
And I see that with your kids. They adore y'all, and I appreciate your support and love for them. And I appreciate your support and love for all of our kids. I really, I've told you that off of a camera 50 times, but I wanted to tell you that in front of everybody, and I also wanted other people to see into your heart, while you can't go out there and preach sermons in the classroom or on the podium when you're at a board meeting. I think you preach sermons.
Well,
Anyway,
we're just using our platform a different way than you use yours.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just in a different venue than any of us use. I mean, we're called to be the fruit of the Spirit, to be the light, to be the salt.
Yeah.
And we're able to do that in our own way that, we are limited in what we can do, certain things, say certain things and do certain things. But if people knew that what we're led behind, the planning, the implementation, the gentle nudges, because there is a line, but I think that, and I say this this is still just part of it's not because of my job. It's really what I've learned to kind of embrace is public schools. If we give up on public schools, our community will suffer. And so it's important for Christians to be active in public schools in any capacity, whether it's to attend, to work, or to support, volunteer in, even in it or from afar. If people give up on public education, then the foundation of our community will suffer. Right. That being said, those Christians, and we have a lot of them that are our leaders, our teachers, our volunteers. I mean, we are so blessed this year. Let's see, I think we have 23 schools, like you said. We have 48 churches that are supporting 23 schools intentionally, weekly, daily, not just with money, not with food, but with people. Yeah. And there's ways you can, that's right. And we have 188 mentors, and a lot of those are rooted in a church congregation on the other end of the county. And I say that is there's ways that Christ is showing up in our schools, in our staff, and our people that are gentle nudges right when you need them. Yep. People are being placed in opportunities where they can plant a seed, like Tami said with her grandma, and have a chance to cultivate it over time. And that's ultimately kind of that we're living the best of both worlds. You talk about Sherry a minute ago, excuse me. She jokes all the time with me. When I would sometimes call you and talk to you about some of these things and ask for prayer, I'd also call her and say, it's time to get to praying women. And she always has her praying women. She always had that for when she was in the job and even after the job. And so I appreciate that there's people all over this county that continue to lift us up. I told somebody this today, actually, at another event, one of our community members, that I think a lot about. He's super involved behind the scenes and would never want to take credit. But we had a discussion about the fact that we have been blessed. We still are kind of in this bubble. And I've said this to you a lot.
That's right.
Unfortunately, Charlotte media and, for the news, for the good and the bad, the news brings, a lot of people clump us into Charlotte centric issues. Yeah. And we've been blessed to not have those. And so it's those issues that people assume that we're relatable to and that we are all up in the mix in that. And we're not. We're still kind of protected from and sheltered, and people notice that about us. And there's something different. I mean, when I go places, and this is not boisterous, this is not about look at us. It's just the reality, excuse me, that people see a difference. And I really go back to, it's not me, it's not Tami, it's about the 11,000 people. A good many of those 11,000 people have a Christ-centered relationship. Yeah,
they really do. I've been, this is going to tell my age. I'm a little bit older than y'all, but I started youth ministry at this church in 1992. And about 3 years later, I became the middle school, helping middle school football coach at Lincolnton. And it wasn't a platform where I went out there and preached every day. But the reason I said that is because the one thing that I've been astounded by and appreciative of Lincoln County schools is back then and even now is the opportunities I'm afforded, to mentor kids, and was involved in student-led FCA stuff from 1992 till now. How much it's just people. I go to people at other conferences and tell them, that I help kind of a chaplaincy thing at the high school.
Yeah.
And they're like, "What? You get to do that?" And I'll tell them point blank, it's you contribute that to our community, but our leaders in our community, and you're part of that, even though there are rules and lines in place. We didn't put those rules and lines in place,
right.
but they're in place and they're real, and they're in there for a reason.
They are,
because it protects Christians as much as anybody, to be honest with you. But that's a whole nother conversation. But what I want to say is how grateful I've been for the opportunities that I've been given. I ain't never been like just shut out of the schools with my faith walk, and there are ways and right ways to do it, and it's been done. And I just appreciate I think every group takes on the personality of its leader.
Agreed.
And
with that being said, I appreciate the fact that our students, this past year, we have more stories to tell where students are stepping up in their leadership roles, being bold in their walk, being bold in their stance. High school, middle school programs are taking off because kids are taking ownership and kids are leading, and the adults are letting go a little bit, which is ultimately awesome. Because if students can do it, students can facilitate it. They can speak that language that only teenagers can speak to each other and talk to each other the way they can, and build confidence. That's right. And that's kind of the ultimate. Okay, I have done my job, and now they have taken it and run with it. That's the ultimate compliment to people that poured into those historical opportunities to open that door, to plant the seed and to water it. And finally, some of those fruits are happening. And, and I say that because that's scary to some people, but I find it very exciting. And that's ultimately what we're trying to grow. This year we launched this philosophy. I'll call it that, Leader in Me philosophy, that we're launching at 5 schools and 8 schools next year, and the rest of them in the 3rd year. But slowly, I hope this will give feet and hands to opportunity, to mission, to minister, to show leadership and potential and genius and ability in any kid. And they're not relegated to a role based on their IQ or their athletic prowess. Is that slowly by planting these seeds and cultivating it and changing some people's attitudes and minds and hearts about teaching, learning, and teaching the whole child. And with whole child, that comes, people think have an answer or an opinion about what is the whole child. To me, the whole child is reading, writing, math, leadership, but also their spiritual walk. We can't obviously teach that. But if we get all the other pieces in place, and then have our community partners,
place where that can happen.
That's right. And have our community partners step in, and that's the testament. I mean, when you talked about when you go to the conferences and talk about the abilities. I mean, when I've shared with our regional people and even the state people, superintendents, that I have all these churches supporting us, they kind of look at me cross-eyed like,
why are you going
down that? Why are you going down that trail? I'm like, why wouldn't you? And it's a win-win. And that's what you look for, is win-win opportunities for everybody. So just, at the end of the day, it's like I said, there's doors that are flinging wide open and some that are gently shutting, and we're paying attention to the ones that are presenting themselves.
Well, I appreciate you've been true to who you are and who you've been called to be, and there'll be people that get a hold of this and watch it and say, oh yeah. And there'll be people that will get a hold of it and watch it and go, I can't believe that guy was on there like preaching about schools. I'll be doing this, there'll be judgments on
there will be
every side of it, but
it's daily.
When you have to put your big boy pants on at the end of the day, what matters is to me is your integrity, and that goes for the both of you, and who you are as a man and a woman, is way bigger than all of that other stuff, So for you people that don't agree, you can turn the channel, whatever. But I have a high admiration for you, and that goes for Tammy as well because I know being a preacher and know how much my wife uh, pours into me, to give me the courage and the strength daily. And I know you don't become you without her, and
Mhm.
those kids don't become them without y'all.
Yeah.
And I just feel like our county's the better for it. And I wanted to thank you for
Well,
it.
and I also want to put a plug in too. This is election season.
Yeah.
And not to get political, but
Sound like you got political right then.
I know.
Not to be, but
But I say it, a lot of what I mentioned would not be possible if you mentioned Heather before, and it's not a plug for her. It's just the idea that I'm governed. My bosses, I have 7 bosses.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for the 7 bosses allowing me and all the leaders that I've got under my watch the opportunity to have some autonomy, have opportunities that
Yeah.
we were taking full advantage of, they could regulate the hound out of it.
Yeah, they're not going to stop.
And they're
you
not.
like that. Yeah.
And so they, it's a credit to what they also allow to happen.
It's the beauty of our community.
That's
really.
it. That's
Yeah.
in this community, by and large, this community accepts what we're doing.
Yeah. So.
Which is not the case in other parts of the state.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm fully aware of that. So we've had those conversations off camera,
Yeah.
but anyway, anything y'all want to say in closing, because we're probably at our limit here with Ryan Becker. Thank you, bud, for everything you do. But anything that you want to say, just to close it out. I mean, anything what's on your heart, like Tammy. He's like, now you want to talk.
I just thank you for the opportunity, and I think everyone needs a place to be able to go and grow.
Yeah.
And it's been provided for us here, and our kids love it. And, they go to a Bible study on their own, and just being able to, it's hard jumping ship from one church where you grow up in.
Yeah. Yes, it
and
is.
trying to find a soft landing where everybody feels that they can grow. And so it's just been a great transition. It's been a couple of years, but still it's been not the transition, but we've been coming for a couple of years. And so it's just been a great opportunity to come to a welcoming place. And you do see a lot of community people here.
Yeah.
They are supportive.
Oh, they love you guys. They really do.
And we are just, what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
I'm going to mangle my words. You might see me at a ball game, you kind of excited. So I'm really working on that. I know. Oh, some people do walk away. So, but just we're there with our hearts, and that's why we do what we do. And just being in this community, we moved here, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into.
Yeah.
I was just like, if you think that's what we need to do, we need to go.
Yeah.
And I just believed in Aaron, what he can do. I mean, he just has the right personality and the right mindset for this type of job. I would probably be fired a few times because I have a tendency to jump real quick off.
You're emotional.
But I am maturing some.
Yeah.
So that says a lot. But it's been great. And I just couldn't imagine being anywhere else and being and feeling this welcoming for this long to be able to do what we do. So
and I'll just wrap it up by saying I appreciate the words you bring there for a long period of time. A lot of the stuff and a lot of the focus that I try to lead with over the last couple of years in this job have come from inspiration from your messages on Sundays. I'll either start texting myself notes now, then I was taking notes on paper, but the ideas of things that you say versus you share, when it speaks to me, then for the last 3 years, that has kind of been the impetus to a theme, a focus, a year's worth of studying X, Y, and Z. So I just appreciate the faithfulness you have too in helping to grow and shape me, which is ultimately in shaping our 11,000 kids and 1,200 adults.
Yeah. I appreciate it. And I can't imagine how hard it would be to be in your position to try to find a church, like people are always, Sherry and I had this conversation one time, like how everybody is, like if your kids go to West Lincoln, they're going to think if you go to Covenant or wherever you go to church, it's like all these pressures that you get that you didn't ask for.
Right. Yeah.
But it's been, to me,
Mm-hmm.
It's been a privilege, to be your pastor, but greater than that, to be your friends, and I just have such a trust and a love for, even when we were starting a school here last year, and I kept Dr. Allen in the loop the whole way, not because out of respect, that's hard to, that's probably hard for some people to understand that he goes to a church that started A school, you know.
Yeah, there was some commentary on that. Yeah.
So I was wanting to, out of respect for you, I kept him in the loop the whole way, and whether advice or just say, look, just to honor you, I need to know, I need to give you a heads up so you don't get blindsided by this next year or whatever. But I just appreciate his support and love for me personally as a pastor. It's just been, like I said, we're just Mike and Aaron when we talk, and everything you just said, man, that was deep. I appreciated that, but I love that man, and I love his wife, and I love your children, and it's personal to me. And I just wanted y'all to know who they were, not just somebody you can talk about behind some screen on some social media platform, but these people are real. They have real children. They have real love and real passion and real relationship with Jesus, and that mattered to me. And I wanted y'all to see that today. So thank you for joining in with us. We appreciate that more than you know. You guys have a blessed day.